Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of Keep the Mic On. My name is Girl Genius. Normally, Simply Sherry does these intros. I almost forgot that I was going to be doing an intro. Good to see. I know it's a weird week. Good to see everyone. If you are just joining us for the first time, this is a weekly show where we come together and talk about different topics and speak with artists about all the awesome things they are doing. And we do it in segments. My segment is the first week of every month. It is called Let's Talk About the dot dot dot, usually books, where I bring artists in and authors and pick their brain about their creative process and all the things that it takes to get from, oh, look, I have a great idea, to, oh my God, I have something in my hands. Ha! So, anywho, Sherry is the third week of the month, and her segment is
From Behind the Microphone.
From Behind the Microphone. I am having a brain fart. It's been a great day, though. I'm not going to lie, but I had a brain fart. So, her segment is called From Behind the Microphone. She's the third week of every month where her tagline is getting to know the artist behind the art. Because artists are people too. True story. Yep. She will be back with us next week. Yes. Yes. We are here next week. We are here next week. We are taking the week after off for Thanksgiving, if I am not mistaken. So, catch up with us. We have a few more shows left until we hit to the end of the year. And right now, I'm going to stop talking and give it to, I get the easy point this week.
Just straight down.
So I'm going to tell y'all the running joke. So whatever way you point on this thing is the opposite
way.
Like right now, I'm currently moving my right hand, but pointing to my, I'm currently moving my left hand and pointing to my right, but it looks the opposite way. So it's always throwing me off whenever I got to point to someone and go, yeah. So that way.
I do know my left from my right. You be like, what?
I know them, but looking at yourself, it's the exact opposite of what you think it's going to be. So you have to like consciously think about it. So yeah. I mess this up. I promise you, like every single week, no matter how many times I practice, I'm like, that way.
Look, I can get both of these and Sherry's not here. Look.
Yeah, I get both. Yeah,
They both work.
Look. That way and that way. I can do it. I promise you I can do it. I'm not that discombobulated. Anyway,
clearly.
I'm gonna stop talking and give it to Kaniki J.
Hello. Welcome to Keep the Mic On. This is a perfect opportunity for me to tell you to like, follow, and subscribe. I know that we have many people that watch us every week on Facebook or YouTube. What else are we on? Spotify. All people. What's up, Spotify people and all the people?
We're on all the things. We're on all the things. We're literally on all the things.
We're on all the things,
including Spotify, where all the past episodes that we've done, at least within the past year, almost all of them are in some state of uploaded or ready to be uploaded. So for your listening pleasure.
Fantastic. Awesome. And I'm sure the Girl Genius did that because they don't call her the Girl Genius for nothing. So I'm sure she got a hand in her superpowers of doing that. So my week is called Poets and Platforms, where I interview poets who have platforms for the arts. I am your fourth, I was going to say Monday, Lord, fourth Sunday interviewer. And I neglected to tell you something. This is what I neglected to tell you. Every week we volunteer our time to be on here, and every artist that comes on volunteers their times as well. But the platforms are not free. So if you would like us to continue to keep the mic on, scrolling at the bottom of your screen, you will see our Cash App. We have been coined a masterclass. We didn't say it, you said it. So if you want to continue to have these artists come on, find out, pick their brains with us as well, feel free to ask your questions in the end. Miss Cayenne will tell you to do that as well. I have learned so much from this show, from these different artists, and I would watch it. If we didn't start this in March 2020, I would be watching it myself. So we have going into 3 years of doing these shows. So please do 3 years. Yeah. That's crazy. We started in March 2020. That's crazy. So I'm super duper excited to find out about this artist for tonight. It's going to be a great interview. So I'm going to kick it to the one, the only, Miss Cayenne.
Love it. Love
Got
it.
it. Got it.
It's truly a feat and something to be celebrated if we get the right finger point, because it is.
Yes.
I can tell my brain do the opposite, and it will just fight me every time. So
Yes.
it's a victory. It's a victory. Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Miss Cayenne, a poet, and I know it. I'm excited tonight. My segment is called Passion Projects, the root of the why. And we get to ask, why did you do this? Why are you into this? What's your story? My grandmother used to say, what's your story, Morning Glory? That's what she used to say to me, ask me,
Yeah.
what you been up to? What you been up to? So that's our, that's the root of the segment, Passion Projects. Listen, we're going to get right into it. I'm going to share some information about this particular artist by way of a bio, and then we're going to bring him on. All right. So, artist and activist Luther Wright challenges the boundaries of traditional painting as he merges old formal techniques with new modern techniques, creating his own genre of art. Because he is an explorer of the visual arts, his style is to have no style at all. Luther explores new ways to use color, textures, and strives to create interesting compositions within his work. He draws inspiration from everyday situations, people, social media, the youth, as well as visions from his dream or meditation state. Luther believes while dreaming/meditating, we are able to enter other dimensions or parallel universes, if you will. And as an artist, he has the ability to bring those visions back into this existing plane for others to experience in the form of art. Art is captured energy, and since energy is never lost, just transferred, art can be used as an interface for energy. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome to the proverbial stage, Luther Wright. How you doing, sir?
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Glad to have you. I'm excited to have you. I see you all over the world, but definitely all over the city. Definitely all over the city. I'm sure I'm limited in where I'm seeing you. I'm sure you're beyond that. So I'm excited to have you give us a few minutes of your time tonight. So what we're gonna do, normally we have a poet or a singer, they will start off with a piece. And in your case, we're gonna share a screen and show a video. And perhaps if you want, you can maybe talk a little bit about what's happening, what your experience, whatever you feel like you want to share. So I'm going to do that, and then we're going to get right into the interview. All right, let's see here.
Okay, so I was this is like I want to say mid-COVID. I was doing like some what we call window murals. And this is basically what started the whole movement during the pandemic of us painting on glass. A lot of the artists had never painted on glass or did murals on glass before, so it was just something new to us. So we had to adapt and kind of learn and kind of conform our own process of doing it. And it actually it took off. So that's what you're seeing here. This is a time lapse of me doing a piece. I want to say this was in Silver Spring, right across from the Whole Foods. If I'm not mistaken, I can look in the mirror. So I did a stretch of small murals on their window panes, and
Wow.
it was just very positive by the community. A lot of it was just positive messages and signs of love and support for the community and things like that, just to try to uplift us in a time where everybody felt like it was a dark time and a time where it was kind of questionable about future and how we were going to be moving forward. So
awesome. I've had an opportunity to be around town and look up and definitely see your handiworks, and it's always a pleasure because I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a signature that you seem to have. So with that said, I intentionally wore my piece today, so it looks.
I peeped your hoodie.
Yeah.
that was one of my first
With my
releases,
piece.
actually. So yeah,
Exactly. And I'm so behind because I got to get some more stuff. I got the old stuff, but this right here gets love every time I wear it. I mean, I've worn it multiple times, and I mean, I think I took a trip to New York to see family, and I'm walking in Manhattan, and then people was like looking and staring. So it gets a lot of attention, a lot of love every time I wear. If I do a live and I have it on, it never fails. So. And there seems to be a theme, at least to some degree. I've seen that pattern, that similar pattern, and definitely the love or the heart. Can you talk to us about what is that? Am I picking up on a theme? Is there something that a signature? What's that about, that heart and that particular pattern?
well, the heart kind of. Well, a lot of people think that it was more so a signature style or a pattern, but really, the community more so chose it to be my
Oh,
signature style pattern. If you really per se, I do a lot of different styles, but when I first did the heart, it kind of resonated, I guess, with the community, and a lot of people started requesting it. The business owners, when they start to board up their businesses during, the Black Lives Matter movement,
mm,
that's when they just would start requesting the heart and stuff like that. So that's when it kind of struck, and then I would just put it in other places where I could. So some of it was actually sanctioned art, and some of it wasn't. So it was a combination of the two. Um, and Yeah, it just became like a signature. It kind of developed and became its own thing over time.
yeah.
I actually had did this style years ago, and I was trying to get into restaurants like Busboys and Poets, and they kind of declined the work and was like, "No, it's not what we're looking for." And
Wow.
so ironic that I used the same style when they reached back out to do these windows, and it
Right.
kind of stalled. So I guess sometimes it's all about timing with anything. So
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Timing can really make the difference. But the irony, the irony is kind of comical because I've seen your work there as well. So, and I can imagine that during, particularly, of course, with Black Lives Matter and some of the, the raids that were going on, or also with COVID, like you said, such a time of despair and uncertainty. This is what we've been saying for years. Art is so important, so significant. Like, I think COVID, if nothing else, it really awakened the world to understand the importance. I have not seen in my little lifetime as much pull on the arts, in
right,
any area, business owner, can you paint my window? Or, hey, can you do a poem? Or they've been pulling because there was such despair and uncertainty. And it's the arts, not a speech that says everything's going to be okay. It was the arts that brought peace and comfort that they pulled on. So, I mean, I would imagine you saw firsthand that. Can you tell us were you like was your phone just ring off the hook? The
well,
hook, for those who don't
yeah,
know, hook
yeah,
back in the day.
don't, especially during like the midst of it, because I was getting contacted by Busboys and Poets. So initially, they were actually paying for us to go out to these other businesses as well.
Wow.
So it wasn't the business owners. Busboys and Poets was like facilitating this whole thing in the beginning during COVID. Andy Shalal and his
Yeah.
team. We actually painted arena stage with him. I painted a piece right next to Andy.
Nice.
So that was pretty cool, and that they were kind of reaching out because in the beginning, a lot of us didn't know what we were going to be doing. We were all kind of like locked down ourselves.
Yeah.
And with that, we were able to get the letters to travel outside and be outside to do the work. So it was just surreal, to see the area were like completely empty. I had never seen DC in that state before.
Yeah.
Um, so it was kind of surreal. And then to transition from COVID right into the Black Lives Matter movement, it was like, it was like we really living this, like, so um, it was just, I was just grateful to be able to be out and be a part of it in the capacity that I was. And,
Yeah.
I never
That's
expected it
awesome.
to be what it turned into, but here
Yeah.
we are.
Here we are. Here we are. I mean, like I said, I know I've said it already, but I literally light up every time I'm in the city and I see something. I'm like, this is awesome. Like, and you and anybody who may not know, if you come, you will see your handiwork all over this. Your signatures everywhere. I think while it may not have been what you intended, I think it just speaks to the concept that I believe in. You know, your gifts will make room for you. You know, we may not always know how, but it will make room for you. Like, and it certainly has, in my opinion, for you anyway. Your bio says artist and activist. Talk to me about the activist role. I know, you know, many people know you as the artist, but talk to us about activist, that title. What does that mean for you? Activist on what particular topic or topics?
Well, I do believe in like equal rights, and I stand for equality on all levels, whether it be LGBTQ, women. I just feel like we all should have a fair shot at doing whatever we feel like our passion is, you know. So I don't feel like people should be held in a box because of their preference of how they choose. As long as they're doing something positive in life, then we should, you know, everybody has something to give and something to value.
Yeah.
Um, so I stand for that, and of course for our rights as Black men and women, you know. I try to represent that in my art, but I also try to represent equality and unity amongst all of us, to try to show the balance between that. That's why my work is a lot of different colors and shapes and sizes and organic flowing motions. But when you put it all together, it makes something beautiful. So it's
Yeah.
kind of relaying to how I would want to see our community and how I feel like our community could be. That's like my representation. That's why I like to put those patterns and those, I guess, images in the community. And like you
Okay.
said, just the response that it gets from the community. People say how I light up when I see it, or it just makes me happy, you know. So, and that's just the play. I studied color theory
Okay.
when I was in college, so I use a lot of that in my work to kind of play on the emotional sets of people when I do different pieces in certain communities. So, yeah. So you know, it's a lot. It's more to it than you know than people may think.
Yeah.
I just see a bunch of colors and lines, but it's actually it's about balance, you know.
Yeah.
Um, it's about seeing the whole thing as a whole and not one color over another. And that's how we should see us in society. You know, it should be balanced. It should be us working in harmony and a unity to things and a consistent flow. And as you can see in my pieces, they're different colors, but they all flow together and they don't even have to match. You know, and they can all still flow together and make something beautiful. So it was just like a blueprint of a representation of you know what I feel like we could be. And as artists coming out of like COVID and the Black Lives Matter movement, I feel like artists we could set the tone and the mood of like you know what we would want to see in our communities moving forward. So I just think
Awesome.
it's important that we were out there, and I'm just glad that the community has received us the way that they have. So
That is excellent. You know, I hadn't thought about it so like that. Like there's, and I should have, right? As a poet, there's a lot of things I may put in my writings or say a certain way, and I'm very intentional about it. I'm making even if it's not overt, and everybody may not catch it, but it was intentional. So I should have known that. But I never really thought about, you know, as the details that you just described about even the colors, because everything you described, I said, yeah, I feel that when I see this, when I feel that, I feel the different colors, the mood, the flow, the unity, the diversity. I feel all of those things when I look at it. I may not have articulated it, but I can definitely feel it. So, and I never thought about the activist part. I think in my mind, I'm thinking about, you know, you have your Al Sharptons and you have your, you know, your Barack Obamas or whatever, people that are talking, but you are describing to me talking through the art so that there's a representation of your stance for is a representation of your stance for equal rights. Like this is a representation visually of your stance, and not necessarily something that you need. Do you find yourself also speaking on these matters, or is it something that you say it's represented through my art alone?
I'd rather it be represented through my work.
Okay.
But I guess through but being in a position where it has represented those certain things, I've been in a position where I've had to speak about it.
Right. Right.
Especially with the power fist that I did and put on the fence down at the White House, that was submitted into the Library of Congress,
Wow.
in their personal archives. So like little things like that, you have to speak
Little
about.
things, big things.
Well, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
You have to speak about those things and like what it meant, because that was one of the iconic images that they said was one of the power fists, along with the heart, the power fist
Yes. Yes.
that became very iconic for me, and during that time. So, and it was funny because I remember like police running down on me during marches and stuff when I was working, but I was actually sanctioned, so I just had to let them know that, hey, I'm being paid to be here, and
Wow.
it was okay, but it was just intense, the whole process and all that, and just being out in the hype of all that. It was a lot of protests going on around that time too. So it was intense. It was a different time in our city, and like I said, I had never been involved or even seen anything in our city quite like it. So just to be out, it was an experience in itself.
Wow. That's crazy. Now you seem very, laid back, very chill. Now I'm trying to imagine myself in that place where, like I said, being, it's DC. Look, it was very interesting place. It's an interesting place anyway. And then during this time, Black Lives Matter movement, even with COVID, like the bareness or when things were happening, is such a tension all around. I'd probably be a little bit more intense, but you seem so laid back. I'm trying to imagine your response to painting, doing what you're called to do, doing what you are, been procured to do as well, and then having, the intensity of police or riots going on. Did you find yourself having mixed feelings, maybe of anxiety or angst or anger, or was the art enough to kind of keep you also balanced even in this intense time?
I would say it was actually a very emotional time, all the way around. Just because at the same time, I was, I found out I was having my first child, and this was during COVID. So I had my daughter during COVID, and at the same time, while I was going out every day, of course, my girlfriend was at home pregnant. So, it was definitely mixed feelings about going out and being safe, because we didn't know about, COVID was new for a lot of people, so we really didn't know. And then, just dealing with that whole thing, with family, couldn't really come see the baby, and, all that stuff that surrounded. It wasn't a regular pregnancy, so that on COVID on top of the Black Lives Matter, and then just being out, like I said, and sometimes I would be painting, and it would be like, it would just be no one out, very quiet, peaceful,
Yeah.
and then there's a whole protest come by, and then you're part of the protest because they're feeling the work that you're doing, and they're all taking pictures and this and that. So then you kind of become part of it, and it's like you really do feel that energy, even if you weren't initially involved with the march
Yeah.
or whatever. You feel that energy. You feel how intense. You see them yelling at the police officers, and this is like right in the face, So it's like, um, it was one of them things like you really had to experience it, I guess, to really see the real energy, and it really hit you, like meaning like, it was sad, it made you feel powerful, it made you feel a lot of different ways at once, and I guess the art did help, because I feel like art heals, so.
Yeah.
Uh, just trying to put these images up to help heal some of these minds and communities, and I feel like it was. I'm not gonna say was. I feel like it does work, and it is working. And that's why we've been called to. Not even just myself. A lot of artists have been put into work, and a lot of projects have been popping up throughout the city. And like you said, a lot of people are calling to the arts now, post COVID, post Black Lives Matter, because I think that the impact that it had during those times.
Yeah.
Like we painted gallery plays, we painted, and I think a lot of people don't know that whole thing too. The drive for that stemmed from us exhibiting in Art Basel, I think in 2019, the year before, And we went down there, it was just like an overload of art. It was just murals everywhere. It was art. You mean like anywhere you can see, it was just art everywhere. So I was the one that said to my group, like, "Hey, we could be the ones that make DC this,"
Wow.
and it was just wild. That was just kind of a thought, and we didn't know how we were going to do it, but it's kind of snowballed itself into fruition through different circumstances. So like we try to make the best out of the worst at all times.
Man, that's powerful. That's awesome. Wow. I can only imagine. I in my mind, for some reason, I'm thinking, I guess that's the creative in me. In my mind, I'm imagining, maybe I'll write something. I'm imagining the conversation or the stories that you'll tell your daughter about this time, right? And how, ultimately, not braggadociously, but ultimately you and your team and you and other artists served as a major uh catalyst to helping the nation heal, helping the nation stay calm enough where it didn't implode. Like, so while you were talking, I was thinking, what would that conversation sound like? And in my mind, that's the writer in me, but I think it's worth celebrating. Again, not from I'm this, but just from a place of humility, actually, because it has just been a very, very precarious time, very difficult time, very, very revolutionary time as well. And with revolutions can also come new innovations and ideas. It's that duality that's happening, and the arts in general, and then you very specifically playing a very major part of that. That's that's powerful. I mean, that's pretty darn cool, for lack of a better word. That's for lack of a better word. Yeah. 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 Go ahead. I'm sorry. You have something else you want to say? Share?
Oh no, I was just saying like, nah, me, I came up painting live on like the poetry scene,
Yeah.
so I do believe, like I used to be a musician. I used to write songs, so I do know how to express myself vocally as well. I used to write a lot. But like I said, it is our way of, communicating to the world visually. And
Mm,
I think sometimes the power of images are overlooked. And then if you look at the history of time, I mean, images were like the first language, is how we first communicated with each other.
right.
How in wars, when you had dictators, the first thing they went after was the art. They didn't want certain images being depicted. They didn't want people seeing their greatness, because if you see it, then you could be it.
Right.
So, and as people don't understand the importance of seeing visual representation, even of yourself. So not only do I do the patterns, but I do portraits of us. And now that that's become popular, I'm working on ways to infuse the two, which is my older style of work mixed with the newer style, because people recognize that more so in the neighborhoods and stuff.
Yeah.
So recently at DC Walls Festival at Met Trail Park over at Noma, I did a combination of the two. I did a portrait mixed in with my pattern, so it kind of let people know that didn't know about me before that I also do this other style of art. So I think it's important for artists to keep exploring and keep on pushing the boundaries with their work, whether it be visual, literary, and just keep on pushing the envelope.
Yeah. That's I gotta go check out the well, I gotta check that exhibit out. I haven't seen that one. And it'd be nice to see the old mix with the new. Which is a great segue to my other question. Sometimes what I like to do is kind of look at the bio and like, well, what about this? What about that? And maybe our listeners and viewers have similar questions. And by the way, viewers, feel free to put questions in the comments. We'll definitely get to them. So you talk about mixing the old and the new. It says here, and thus creating your own genre of art. Do you have, well, how would I say? Have you labeled your genre? And if so, what would it be called? Your genre of art, Luther's genre,
I haven't really labeled it per se.
which is
I
probably
would
what you're trying to convey, labeling.
right, right. I wouldn't really, like put it out there and be like, oh, sure. I just strive to do different things, and I know no one reinvents the wheel. but I just try to put my own spin and my own flair on whatever I do. And my work is a lot about craftsmanship, and so I try to, pride it on that. But then I also have series where I don't really. It's not about the craftsmanship, so I try to give a play on aspect to get people to just appreciate art all the way around, and that's another part of the activist part as well. It's not only active as far as social awareness and things like that, as far as like us, but just art activists, meaning like pushing for the rights for artists, pushing for the right for equal pay for artists, and suitable projects for sustainable income for us to be able to live and strive in what we do.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I can see that playing out because I remember thinking when I began to see your work, your signature all over the city, I remember thinking this is so much bigger than just painting on a glass. Like I remember thinking this is, did we lose you? Oh, there you go. I remember thinking it was like a movement. It was like a statement, like you said, for artists to say, hey, we have a voice here. We are relevant here as artists. I remember thinking that it was lovely. It's healing. It's joy. But it was also a statement, I think in my mind anyway, for artists to say, hey, we are here and we are mainstreaming it. We are relevant and fight and a kind of like a fight. And that word is kind of a harsh word, but kind of like a statement and a fight. I remember thinking that as well when I began to see your work all over the city. And it's funny because you're saying that it's not just activists from the perspective of equal rights for this social ill or whatever, but also for the artists to say, hey, equal treatment, equal pay, or commiserate pay. And I think even you being a part of that movement spoke volumes to just that. Like, we are here, you are here as artists. Now you said some things I didn't know. I didn't know. I don't remember. I may have forgot that you did music at one time. Do you still write? Do you still do music, or is the art now the consuming, the visual art, the consuming outlet of creativity, or do you still do the others as well?
I still play the guitar every now and then. I keep up guitars. I still write. Sometimes I've written for a few people's albums and got song credits.
Wow, okay.
That note. But I kind of try to stay behind the scenes when it comes to that now. I kind of I played in go-go bands. I've done all that for years. So I'm kind of still known on that circuit, like backyard bands. People like I kind of know them. I was doing that for years before we switched over to art. So it was like for a lot of people who knew us from the band, they were just like, "You do art?" Like we did, had no idea, But I fell back into it when I went back to college for my degree, and I took a lot of art electives, and I won a lot of awards in our like student gallery shows and stuff like that, and that's what kind of motivated me. Like, hey, maybe I can do this, And I just went for it, and I worked for the government for about 6-7 years, and then we were switching contracts and doing some stuff. They were moving things around, and I was just like, I'm gonna just go full time, and I rented a spot to do my tattoos. I've been tattooing for about 10 years now.
Okay.
And that was what helped me financially, be stable through the transition, and then actually, like I said, we didn't really know what we was going to do right before COVID. I was actually looking for like part-time jobs at like galleries and stuff like that. And then COVID hit, so it really shut everything down. And then the mural public art. And luckily I had just learned how to use spray paint. Like I've only been using spray paint for about 2 years now.
What?
So I had picked it up right before COVID. I did a training session with my homeboy Jay Hudson. Shout out to Jay Hudson. Real dope muralist. He's up in like Riggs Road area, DC.
Okay.
But he did like a little training session with me and another fellow artist that were like just interested in public art, So that's why another reason we all give back. We all try to share our, what we know with each other, because we just feel like if doors open for any of us, is opening up for everybody. So it just makes it better for the whole. group collectively. It makes it better for our city. And we just feel like the art is changing the city landscape. I mean, if you go through DC now versus 5 years ago, it's way more art up,
Yes.
and it's funded a lot more. And like you said, people are seeing the impact of it. And I think, we can also credit things like social media to that, because people are tagging and posting, which it all goes back to being political, like, and I kind of got into the political side of the art world. Maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, I started working with the Arts Council in Prince George's County. And, I just felt like I needed to find out where the funding was coming from, what was the politics behind the art, so it was a lot of strategic moves that I did, to get where we are, and made certain relationships and use those relationships to like hone where we are now doing public art projects. And I also had to hone my own skills and be able to elevate myself to be able to step up to do those type of projects when they presented themselves. So I knew it was a lot of work we had to do, but like I said, we strategically planned where we wanted to go, the people we needed to meet, and we just stayed consistent on that. And here we are now. Like I said, like you said, a few years ago, you didn't see this much art in the area, and now it's everywhere. And we're loving it. We're not, and we feel like it's doing great things for the community. It's inspiring people to follow their own passions, and it's brightening people's days. I've had people text me like, "Hey, I was having a bad day, and I just seen your piece, and it just changed my whole mood." So we do it for things like that. It's not, the money and stuff will come. You know what I'm saying? And that, the universe will provide for that. But that's what we do it for, really. I like doing like career days with the kids and stuff like that. I feel like that's nothing I had growing up, so I try to do things like that to inspire the youth to, be something else, to stay creative, stay in that mind frame.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You said a mouthful there. So many thoughts in my head. One, I'm gonna lift this out for the sake of the viewers, because the viewers have often called Keep the Mic On as a master class. And every now and again, I like to try to, lift something out. You said something, you said several things that was really, I think, a master class nugget. And one of them being, it sounds like, the heart and the love and the passion, right, for the work is what kind of leads you. And you said, and the money will come. It will come. It will come because, you have integrity to the craft, and the money will come. That was one nugget I want to highlight for the audience. Second thing you said was paramount, and it was convicting, is strategizing. You said specifically, hey, I started to get involved in the political side of things to find out where the money, where the funding is, and specifically how do they view funding for the arts, which again, and then you said we strategize to now kind of be in the place that we are in. So that meant that was not just, ooh, I just love painting, I'm just going to paint and it's going to fall in my lap. It was a strategy. It was thoughtful. It was intentional. And I think that's a very good nugget to draw out for other creatives, no matter what your, outlet of creativity is, to be strategic, particularly if you're wanting to go beyond simply a hobby, and say, hey, where do I need to tap into? And how, a third thing you said, and how to increase your own craft, like taking, getting together with another artist, learning. I would have never known. You just been doing this. I remember seeing you do something online. I did remember thinking, oh, I didn't know they could do that, but I just assumed that was something you had been doing, and I just wasn't aware. So just increasing your own, investing in oneself to increase and enhance their craft. Those are three major things I just wanted to highlight that really speaks to the masterclass concept that the people say that this show is, because you just dropped three major things that any creative can take and run to the bank with. Being intentional about your connections, where not just where the money at, but really what is the mindset of those who make decisions around the art. That's what I do. I'm an arts. What are their mindsets around this? How do I plug in?
And see, that was the importance for us attacking public art, because what I found out is the people hold the power, right? So when the people say or show what they want in their communities, the politicians have to respond to that, because then that gives them power. So it's all a cycle, but you have to show that something is wanted before they will make a move on giving you that. You get what I'm saying? And that's kind of with a lot of things. Even with working with the Arts Council, I was throwing art shows and stuff in the county, and I was trying to get them to help fund it and this and that. And a lot of it was, well, we want to wait and see what you do first, and if it's successful, then we'll kind of piggyback on it. But nobody really wants to jump out there, until you can kind of prove what you're capable of doing, unfortunately. But that's just, I guess, you know. So a lot of the things that we do on our own, we fund out of our own pockets. We just, like I say, it's not about that. We just look at it as an investment for our own craft, or we look at it as an investment back into the community that we live and that support us as artists. So,
wow, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I think anyone can take that to the bank, because I'm guilty. I just had this conversation. I said, I'm so guilty, let me just do the art. But there's some other components to that. And it's still artistic, finding out, connecting, what do the people need? What do the people want? Because then you can be, I think, more targeted, more intentional, more effective, right? And it's clear the effectiveness that your work and your team is having. Speaking of which, you're using the pronoun we. So talk to me. Is that a business? Is that a team of artists? Who are the?
I do my thing as an artist, but I also run a collective,
Okay.
the Collective Artists. I'm also a partner with two other art collectives, the DMV League of Artists as well as Art Bay.
Wow.
And we all kind of serve a little bit different functions, which all kind of, when you put it together, it just makes one big conglomerate or network or however you want to call it. And we just all work together. We share opportunities. If something comes up, we'll pull the best artist that we feel like is for the job to represent all three entities, and we just try to work together. And like I said, we are all pushing for advocacy for the arts as well. So we trying to when it comes to like public art, we don't want, people. I know a lot of artists are trying to get on and different things like that, but we wanted to be able to be like, all right, don't take a project this size for under this amount of pay, because that's the standard. Like, you don't want to undercut yourself, you don't want to undercut the market, you just, so we're trying to just kind of form something like that. Not more so like a union or a board or anything, but just a place where people feel like they can come, and if they have any questions about, what they're doing, it's an experienced crew of artists that already been through certain things that can help you with making an educated decision. So, we're not trying to dictate or anything. We're just here to try to help the artists move forward and have some type of standards for the consumer, the people wanting the art. A lot of people, it's, people don't understand art as I want to say a delicacy when it comes to collecting. A lot of us will take pay cuts and stuff like that when it comes to doing public art, because we're doing it for the community. We're putting it out for the public, but when you're doing it for someone in their home, that's a private collector. That's not for a public consumption. That's for your personal consumption, so people don't understand, if I'm selling a piece for 2,500, that's a 16 by 20. It's hard for me to come in your house and do your wall for 500,
Right.
So, stuff like that. So just know what you're asking for when you, step to some of these artists. And that's the type of culture we're trying to build. We also have our artist talk show where we talk to artists and break down those type of things, and pricing your art, what it's worth, because the art is a very cutthroat game. It's a very, all the way around. So that's why we built this community, so we don't have to be that way. And we can all learn from each other. We can all build together. When you win, I win, stuff like that. So, and we know the industry is cutthroat. That's why we formed our own energy, and we try. Our own thing. I guess we call it creating our own lane. We were just like, yo, it's not really an art scene here, so let's create one.
Yeah.
And then when people think of art, they think of us. So, and if we set that standard for what the art is, then we'll be the first people think about when they come to art or black art or whatever that may be. So that was the whole goal in the beginning, and just helping artists. Because when I started, I didn't have any help. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know anything. So, I just knew that frustration, and I just wanted to be um, a platform and help other artists,
Yeah,
that may dealt with those same issues.
sure. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And in this world where everyone is, sometimes it's competition, so they're not sharing information. I can't tell you how many times I've reached out to people, who were doing something that I wanted to, or at a place where I wanted to get to, and they ghost you. They don't want to share information. It's wow. So to be able to form something where it's informative, it's welcoming, it's supportive, empowering, that's gold right there. That's golden. So I'm curious because you kind of hit on some of it. Part of my interview, my section, I kind of try to go a little bit back in childhood. Like now, if anyone sees LW, if they don't know, they're gonna find out who that is and who's. But when you were younger, like was being an artist, that's one, like a visual artist. But let's just make it more general. Initially, was being a creative something you knew you'd be, like you do that for a living, or were you thinking about doing something totally different when you were younger?
My initial passion was to be an architect. Actually, like I wanted to be an architect, to always like draw houses, and and I actually had a landscaping business for quite some years. I did that for a while. I actually worked a lot of different jobs
That's
and that's why
good.
I felt like I wasn't going to ever be someone to work for years.
Uh-oh, you're breaking up.
Dance at Duke Ellington School of the Arts. And I used to always go out and be at a lot of her shows. And, so I was always around a lot of creatives. I had uncles that were into the art. They drew a lot. One of my cousins is really why I really got into it myself. He was in college when I was young. So I used to always see him working on stuff for his class portfolios. And he used to draw comic books a lot. And that's how I kind of got into drawing, doing comic book characters and things like that. And then it went from that to designing clothes. So I designed clothes and had a clothing line for quite some time. So that's how the clothing line kind of came full circle.
Okay,
Because I already
how did this come into play? Got it. Okay.
right. So I had a background in fashion. I did fashion for about, I want to say about 5 or 6 years. I was actually traveling, doing big shows. I was doing stuff, shows at like Bowie State, Howard. I was all the way around. And I worked for a couple local brands like design and stuff like Hobo. We did a few for Madness, like Scrapers. Like those were like local brands at the time, like urban brands that were kind of out. And then we had our own thing that we were doing as well. And so that, and then the music came into play. So once that happened, I jumped in, was doing the band stuff, guitar and all that for years. And when I went back to college, that's when I got back into the art, because my cousin who got me into the art, he actually passed. He had a seizure, and I actually stopped doing art for years. Like I completely wouldn't paint, I wouldn't draw, I wouldn't do anything. I just left it alone all the way around. And I actually dropped out of school. I was in
Mm.
art class in school at the time. I didn't get along with my teacher. I dropped out. So it was a real tough time in my life. I guess I was saying, like, went through like a mild depression.
Yeah.
And when I finally picked myself back up and was like, hey, I'm gonna go back to school. Whoop, whoop. I went to this. I went back to school for business, but I was like, hey, I'm gonna take some art electives. And I ended up having the same teacher that I did not get along with. I dropped her class. We used to get into it all the time.
Oh
And
gosh.
this was like almost 10 years later. And I was
Oh
like,
my
this is the same
gosh.
classroom. I was like, this is the same classroom. And I was like, what in the world? I was like, watch me have this same lady. And who comes walking in the room but the same exact lady. And my head just dropped. I was like, but I was like, you know what? I was like, be an open book. I was like, you don't know anything, and just trust the process. And I became one of her favorite students. We became tight, and I learned so much under her. And like I winning awards under her in her class, and that's where it kind of inspired me to move to be an artist. So it's just interesting. Like we laugh about it all the time now, And anytime I go back to the school, she has me talk to the class, and
Yeah.
because she feels like I'm one of her artists that made it beyond just that. So it's a cool little story, and I still have work in my portfolio from like 10 years ago from her class, and she was like, and when we talked, it was so funny that I found out that was her first year teaching. It
Got
was
it.
my first year that I had her, so she was still learning,
Yep.
and I could understand
Woo.
some of the stuff she was tell her. She was like, "Well, I was still learning," and da da da. She was foreign. She wasn't from here, so it was the language barrier. So it was a lot, And I was young, and the funniest part is seeing some of the kids in the class that reminded me of myself back then. And she was like, "You remember you were the cool kid back then? Remember that?" But she was like, "You're still the cool kid, but you're different." And she looked to me to influence them. Because she was like, they
Yeah.
listen to you, they follow you, because I guess I was a little bit older at the time going back, but, I still look like them, so,
Right. Right.
and
Right.
because good, they did kind of like, if I came in and I wasn't playing around or doing it, it set the tone for how they reacted in the class. So she came to me several times, it's like, I can tell the difference from when you're in class and when you're not, so I was just like, oh, so
You're
it kind of helped me understand the power of just seeing someone like yourself doing this too in the community. When we see the kids, I work outside of schools, and they see someone that looks like them.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that resonates a little different as well.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh goodness, Lita. That's awesome. First of all, I'm like, how many things, how many careers, how many things have you done? So I heard tonight already, because I was gonna ask you, I was like, anything I've ever even when we first, and it's been so long, I don't remember I remember you were part of one of my annual event, you painted live and that kind of thing. And I remember even then, I remember thinking, this cat, I've never really met anyone, I never met a visual artist that was so professional. So I had met you, but I was doing the business part with Charles. I was doing with
Charles, yeah, that's my man.
and I remember thinking, okay, this is how we doing it. Okay. And but it resonated. It stood out to me, not as who we think he is. It stood out to me as this cat is serious about the craft. It's about professionalism. That's how I took it.
Right.
And I remember thinking, oh, how did he get an agent, or how does he get somebody? And then even when the clothes, the packaging, everything was so top of the line, and I'm like, wow, how did he get into this? Or how, of course, I'm not daily talking to you or whatever the case would be. So of course I wouldn't know that. But I remember every time I would turn around, it was like the level of professionalism that seemed to ooze from whatever you put your hands to. I kept thinking, gosh, he's so serious about the craft. And then I'm like to myself, well, how can I raise my own bar? So I just want to kudos to you, because anything from a person from the outside looking in and participating or being a recipient of your work in some fashion or form, it always speaks volumes of professionalism, just another level of professionalism, even as an artist. And I'm sure that there are faux pas and things that happen, but from a consumer perspective, I've always had a high end level experience with your work, whether it was you painting and me making the arrangement, whether it's me purchasing the items and receiving this wonderful packaging and this wonderful, very high quality, very high quality
We do
material.
a lot of research on our clothes, stuff
I
like that.
see.
We try to do a lot of research goes in before we release anything, before we put anything, even some of the projects we take, is very, like I said, everything is strategic, and sometimes we'll take projects that aren't even really paying, depending on the impact it'll have on the community, things like that. As far as the clothes, I always had a thing for fashion and just quality, so I believe that, if I'm going to put something out for us, it should be of quality, and and I'm trying to not kill people with prices either, so I believe that good quality at fair prices, so I try to run my business like a sense of like old fashioned business, like the old mom and pop shops. And I know the one thing, I do a lot of, like, I just talk to the community, I talk to the people, and I just see what, we do a lot of evaluating. We never go from an event and be like, all right, that was the event. We take away what was great from it. We take away what we could have did better. We take away, what we feel like we could have did to make it run smoother. And that's with all aspects of our business. So um, one thing that we was hearing earlier on is a lot of people like art and they like dealing with artists. I mean, they like the art and they like getting art, but they don't like dealing with artists directly because we could be flighty, we could be this, we could be all over the place. So
Yeah.
this is why Charles was put in place,
Got
to be that filter. And like you said, it wasn't to be like, oh, I'm this or that. It was to actually make sure business is being conducted properly and consistently on a certain level, and when people see that, it's like you said, it's a certain level of professionalism that people appreciate. When you get an invoice, when you get a contract, when you get this, it's also security. It's
Yeah.
assuring them their end that they're going to get the level of service that they're requesting. So, it's an all the way around thing, and even that, and getting our own artists paid. We try to get them on the mindset of like signing contracts and don't do work without a contract, without a deposit, without these things, because if you don't, you run into all these things on the back end,
Yeah.
and these are all things we've actually dealt with ourselves. So that's why I said we evaluate from each situation to improve, and then we use those same things with our artists, and anytime we try to tell someone, it's not because we're trying to grandfather someone or anything like that. We're just trying to tell you from personal experience. And like you said, we can lead a horse to water. You can't make them drink. So it's not, we don't force anything upon anyone or anything. We just give you our point of view. And a lot of people come to us for advice all the time, whether it be, how do I get into doing murals? How do I price a mural? What spray cans do I use? What da da da? I get millions of questions every day, text messages from different artists asking thousands, So, but I'm here for it. That's what we're here for. Um, our recent project we just did for the International Horse Show, the Washington International Horse Show up in Marlboro.
Okay.
I actually had two of our entry level artists do murals. So one of them, it was their second mural, but I helped them, I coached them through it, I showed them the grid system, got them up, and then I recently just linked them with the director of Prince George's County Arts and Humanity, and they're going to pay for them to do a apprenticeship program for murals. So they'll send them to college courses, everything paid for. So it's just, these are the things. Like I said, sometimes as an artist, I have to push the boundary as for my own art in order to be able to get opportunities for the artists coming up behind us as well.
Mhm.
So it's a lot, like I said, and people have to understand, like, no one has to do these things. Like, it's a lot of artists that are out here and they're independent, they're being successful just being by themselves. And so I don't want people to think that an artist owes anyone anything or an artist has to do these things, but we just want to understand that we're stronger together. And the way that I'm all over the city is not because I'm just popular, it's because of the network that I have behind me and all these artists that I've actually helped out. They, in return, when they get opportunities, they reach back out to me and help out the same way. So
Yeah.
the way I've put them on or keep them eating, they do the same for me. So it's a two-way street. It's not a one-way street. It's not one person just being the guru. It's all of us working together, and we all keep each other in the game, and we all have our own lane. It's like we always try to say, it's like Cash Money. You have Lil Wayne, you got Nicki Minaj, you got Drake. They all superstars, but and they all work and they all under the same label. So, we just try to use that concept when it comes to us as artists as well. So we don't get like, no one is really bigger than the other. We don't look at anybody as superstars. If you around us, we talk to each other like brothers and sisters. We cuss each other out, So, and we sometimes we just like, don't worry about this, how we talk, like, So it's like I said, we try to stay humble about it.
Yeah, and I can tell it's so evident. I'm sitting here like, man, I want to just be a fly on the wall, or maybe I can. Can I be an intern? Because even the principles that you're talking about, right? The principles that you're talking about can be applied in the artistic realm in general, and I think it's a beautiful thing. Oh my gosh, talk about a masterclass. Okay, so it sounds like what I was asking earlier was the childhood. So it sounds like artistic expression has been a part of your world early in the game, whether it was family, things you had a knack for, things you had an affinity for, and then, like you said, you went back to school, brought you full circle to the teacher. Now, here's the thing: people may assume because you're doing, your art, your visual art, people may assume, but the question is, what is your passion? Now, I may think it's one thing, but what would you answer? What would be your answer to the question, what is your passion?
I would say my true passion is to just leave a legacy behind, or leave something behind the society, and that, my daughter and my family could be proud of, to be like, hey, and just be an inspiration to the next generation. That's really the true passion behind everything. To be an example, to set blueprints. Like I said, I tell a lot of my artists all the time, you should take your art beyond the wall. And what I mean by that is, like, hoodies, t-shirts, cup holders, anything that you can do to be sustainable in your gift, because it's a gift that you have. And that comes with even literary. Like, I've talked to some poets, like, hey, put your poem on a t-shirt. Everybody can't everybody don't read. We know that everybody don't be in the books, but everybody got to wear a shirt every day.
Yeah.
So, little things like that can take your art beyond whatever you're doing. You can take your craft beyond you're doing. Make a calendar and have a poem in each month. Like, you get, like, little things like that. It's just taking your art beyond this one dimensional realm that we always place it in, and keep pushing the limits. We have shoes, we have socks, we have, I did air fresheners, keychains, you name it. So we've tried to do a little bit of everything just to show people that you can do this. And in this modern day age with social media, technology, all this stuff is right at your fingertips. I mean, we can contact people in China right now and get stuff printed up, made. You can, we have Black-owned facilities right here in Landover. Shout out to KDF Printing. We do a lot of our printing there. We host a lot of our events there. It's a factory, Black-owned. Brother helps us out a lot with a lot of our things. You know, just try to keep everything and keep it local. Not just local. We don't want to stay local. I've been traveling a lot. I've been having a lot of fun actually traveling and putting up work in other cities, and people recognize the work and they'll tag me, or just someone will see my work from DC and to be in another city, and it kind of just, like, oh man, I'm just proud to see you out here, or because they've seen our journey since the beginning, and we've been very transparent on our whole journey. We post everything. We're in the community still. And that's the stuff I try to teach to our artists, no matter where you think you are, where you think the community see you at, whatever level, still go out, work with these kids, like, because those are the ones that really need it. They need the example. They need to see that it's different ways of being creative and expressive, and just being out there don't necessarily mean that they'll be an artist, but it'll help them push them into whatever they want to do. Yes. And have that confidence moving forward, and just having people constantly telling them that they can do something else. And you don't have to rap, you don't have to play basketball, you don't have to really go to school if you want, because that's, education is what you make it. Some of the smartest people dropped out of school, and and you just got to do your own research, is what I say. What some schools is founded on and things like that. Sometimes you got to just do your own thing. I'm not knocking school. I went to school.
Right.
I understand what it does for you and the discipline it gives you. So I'm not bashing school or anything, but it's not for everyone, is all I'm saying. Right. And just because it's not for you doesn't mean that you can't be successful in whatever your passion is. So
awesome. That's another beautiful nugget. Just because it's a tool, it doesn't have to be the end all to be all. It doesn't mean you won't be successful or can't be successful. Another beautiful nugget. My friends and I, we went to school together, undergrad together. We talk about it now. Like, if I had it to do again, I probably still would have went to school, but I definitely would have went through it with a different mindset of understanding that it's one of many paths, but we were kind of brought up to believe it was the path. And so I taught for several years, and kids who, you know, they struggled in school. They were smart students. It wasn't about, you know, having some difficulty understanding. They were intelligent students, but the school, and that wasn't their thing. But because they were told that's next step after 12th grade, they would enroll as robots just because that's what they were told they had to do. But it wasn't really something. And then they drop out, you know.
Right. And that's what happened to me. I mean, I came to college, I partied, I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I went back that I was actually ready. I knew what I wanted to. I had the mindset that I wanted to go in, you know, so I approached it way different, you know, so yeah, I agree with that, you know.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I got a brother now. I'm trying to get him to understand that, but you know, he's fixated on what the tradition is for our family, and he's struggling. So I was just like, I wish I could understand that. And even if it met a couple years later, he could come back, but that's another conversation. So
I dated a woman in education for a while, and she was like really up, and like she principal, you know, so she really felt that, and we clashed on that all the time. And now she gets it.
Yeah.
And he's like, I see what you were saying all these years, like, you know, and I just try to explain it. You got to understand why school was even formed in the first place. Like, you know, it's not formed for us to be entrepreneurs. It wasn't formed for us to be business owners. It was formed for us to be workers in factories and to be compliant to a traditional schedule. That's what they wanted us to be. But that's why it's no place for artists in those structures, because we think outside the box. We're not in the box, so we're not in that system that they want us to be in. That's why we always struggle. Like every job I've had, I work there as long as I can, and then I leave, like without whatever I need to take from it, and then I go to the next one, you know. And now I'm just where I am, and I'm content with that.
Right now, I'm just here, flying high, soaring. And I appreciate you sharing that too, because I think for so long I've been accustomed to, while I was a creative, you know, living in a boxy world. So trying to navigate myself as a person who struggled to be in the box, but yet, you know, being a firstborn, you know, you're taught that's what the good girls do, good boys do, to stand by. So that was always a fight and a struggle. And so to even hear that it's confirming and affirming, to say like those structures weren't really made for us. And that is why I think I see it now more in the schools or in my own collaborations with schools, because they're desirous to say, hey, we need to introduce arts again in our schools from a social emotional learning perspective, because it is so needed and necessary. And there are kids, they just don't learn the same way. This is how and so I can have conversations now with principals and teachers who, when I taught, they didn't get that, but now you can see the shift. Now it's like, can you come? Can you do? Can you get? You know what I'm saying? So
and I understood that a little bit more myself. Even it was a course I took in class, and I think we learned about, I think it was Howard Gardner's 8 different learning methods or something like that. Yeah. And I even said that in a sense. I said, now if we know that there's 8 different methods of learning, wouldn't you question how you place these kids in classrooms with certain teachers? Because if a teacher teaches a certain way and I learn a certain way, regardless if I'm smart or not, I'm not going to thrive in that classroom if that style of teaching caters to another style of learning. So if I'm a literary learner, or, you know, and my teacher is a visual teacher, the visual student is going to thrive more in that class, not because they're better, not because they're smarter, because I'm being taught in a way that I understand and comprehend better.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah,
you know,
you on it, you preaching right there. Because and it's so true. It's so true. Passion, my segment is called Passion Projects. So we talk about the passion. I think artists and creatives, you know, often are very passionate about their artistry, or passionate, like you said, about leaving a legacy, you know, a mark that their family, their kids, their, you know, can point back to, and so forth and so on. And passion often speaks to, you know, defined as, you know, intense enthusiasm, intense emotion, intense affection, it also speaks to strong lust, strong desire. But then the other side of passion that we may or may not always think about is in the Latin, it also speaks to suffering. It also speaks to suffering. That's why, for the story's sake, the crucifixion of Christ was known as the passion of Christ. Right. So I often like to ask people that come onto the show, while we can get engrossed in the intense enthusiasm of the art, what is the suffering or the pull and the tug or the angst that you may have even in your passion or even in your art?
I would say the hardest thing is being dedicated to the craft, being dedicated to the arts. Relationships can suffer, especially when it comes to like personal relationships or intimate relationships. Everything like that can suffer because it's always second.
Yes.
It's always on the back burner, and unless you can find someone who understands what your goal and your true meaning is, then it will never work. Because you're only going to be a piece on that fits into what I'm trying to do, and if you don't fit to that piece, then you get left behind, and another piece gets put into place. So I think, and it's not to be like savage, it's not to be any of those type of things. It's just because you're dedicated to that one thing. So in a sense, I just feel like being fair to being honest up front, you got to let people know, like, this is what I'm in, this is what I'm doing. And then you give them the opportunity to decide if that's something they want to deal with or not. But like you said, you do sacrifice, a lot, time is the most thing I would say you sacrifice, because it takes time to become better. It takes time to go out to these places and be you and be whatever you're trying to pursue. And then within that time, you miss things. Like I said, I just had a daughter recently, so it was a lot of time that I was missing, with her, just little things. She would walk for the first time or something. I would be out painting, So it's a lot of things that you would have to sacrifice. And then it's just learning how to balance those things as well. Like, hey, if I know I got to work and paint for a month, I'm gonna take a week or two off and just be home, stuff like that. So, and knowing when to say no, because everybody, you want to keep going, and especially as a full-time artist, you never know when your next payday coming. You never know when, so it's a grind every day, and I'm glad we're not at the point where we're a starving artist, but we're still grinding artists.
Yeah.
And it's still every grind to, make the next meal, pay the next bill, whatever, So, and I just think, in life, it makes it a little bit more challenging because, like, every single decision you make all the way around affects everyone. Your other artists, your family, your own career. You could say yes to this and that. You shouldn't have said yes to that because it's going to take you way too much time for the pay.
Right.
Or, just different little things like that. So you got to really, like I said, it comes back down to being strategic. So if you start building those strategic habits in the beginning, it makes it a little easier down the line because you've already built these habits and you know how to kind of move and how to, even financially being an artist full time, you got to know when the dry seasons are coming. You got to know when stuff is going to be, people spend money, when, you got to know all these different things, marketing wise, the same as big businesses would know it, in order to really capitalize off of these different times. And, and you got to know when stuff is going to slow down. So you have to have savings and reserve to be able to make it to the next time that things are going to pop again. So it's a lot of planning. And like I said, a lot of being strategic. It's a lot of sacrificing what you want to do, going out to different places. And, it's not all fun and games when it comes to stuff like that all the time. But the freedom that I have with my craft is worth it every moment, I would say.
Yeah, that's powerful. God, you just dropping golden gems, bam, 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 after another. You mentioned the strategy as it relates to like planning and the saving, knowing the dry seasons, and then like you said, I'm totally relating decisions I've made and I was like, and you're in it. And it wasn't until I got in, I was like, I probably should not have done this, because now I'm suffering over here, something that I committed to, or whatever. So, and you have to recalibrate and make sometimes tough decisions and have courageous conversations. I think that's another thing that happens a lot as you're honing in on your craft and honing in on your own strategy and your lane, is having to come back to the table and recalibrate. So that is definitely the angst, and then going places and stuff like that. So here's a thing that I'm going to segue into, and then maybe a couple more questions, and then we'll go into the last video, which is one of the strategies I started to put in place for myself is, first of all, identifying my own life, what I call my life mission and vision. Like, I have a vision and mission statement for your business, and then and for me, I have something like that for my business, for my artistic business, and then looking and refining that, of course, for my own personal life. Miss Cayenne, Dynasty Cayenne's life vision, does it align? So I started to ask the question whenever I'm putting my hand to something or saying yes to something. While a lot of people say the driving force is, does it pay? But I have to admit that the driving force often is, does it align with my life mission and vision? Does it fall into place with that? And that has helped me tremendously. And even though people may say, why are you doing that? It doesn't matter if you don't understand it. I know that it falls into alignment with my vision, my life vision and mission.
They're not going to understand your vision is your vision.
Right.
Nope.
Exactly. What do you mean?
Yeah,
you ain't paying money for that. And I'm like, I hear you, but there's something bigger. And and a part of that is part of my core values, to be authentic, my authentic self to me, and whoever encounters me, authentic, just be authentic, be genuine, because I can't be genuine when I'm just doing stuff to be, so that's a part of my core values. What are some of your core values, and how do they fit into your why, the why you do what you do? What are some of your core values?
I would say it is to be authentic, and just be loyal to, loyal to our brand per se. Like, we pride on just having good morals and business ethics. And we try to relay those to our other artists. We have artists that we cut from our collective because we didn't really feel like their business morals and ethics fit our business model. Meaning, like, we felt like they were doing things that was immoral to customers and under the table stuff that just wasn't right, So we just, like I said, we pride ourselves on more like an old mom and pop. We base things off of people. We don't try to look at you as far as your credibility, as far as your this, that, and the third. We try to work with you based on just our genuine relationship with you as a person. So that's really what our thing is. And we pride ourselves on like good customer service. That's our main thing. We try to work with people with their budgets, with whatever we can, and then we still try to provide the same quality of work. So it's not like a thing like if we are trying to charge you $1,200, but you only got 5, and we accept it, then we're not going to just be like, oh, well, they only gave us $500. We're still going to give you that same quality of work as if you paid the $1,200. And I just think it's important to just have that standard of quality all the way across the board, whether it be your artwork, whether it be, the way you handle business. And that's just really what it is. Just customer service and being consistent all the way across the board, and leaving the space better than what you came into it. I always told that even when I travel and stuff like that, try to leave an area better than what you came. So like when we do public art, we try not to leave a mess all over. I try to teach my artists to like clean up, properly put stuff down so you don't leave a mess. Have people want you to come back. Like you don't want anybody to come in and be like, oh, what the hell is this? Why is this here? What is, what I'm saying? You want people to come in and be like, wow, like this is amazing, and we're glad we did this, and if we can refer you to somebody else, we will, So that's how your business continues to flourish, and because everybody know word of mouth is the biggest thing. We just talked about this today, and it was so funny. And I said this to my friends. I said, everybody and their mom has probably been to a Chinese carryout. Chicken wings, mumbo sauce, stuff like that. So now, when in your life
Looks like you're frozen.
The word of mouth is very powerful. So I just know, when you connect with people personally, that's how, your business stays where it is. It stays consistent, it stays moving forward, and you have the progression.
You cut out for a second there, and I really wanted to hear that analogy. You said everyone's gone to a carry out where they get the chicken and the mumbo sauce, and it cut out. What was the analogy that you made?
Oh, I said everyone has been there, but I said you've never seen a commercial or a billboard for Chinese carry out or anything. So
Yeah.
and why are they still able to be successful in our communities for decades? I can go to a carry out from when I was a child that's still there right now, and they're still there. So it's word of mouth. So you got to understand the importance of word of mouth. People are like, oh, they got some great chicken wings. So that's when I tell you that, you believe my word and you go. So people understand the power of the word of mouth and stuff like that. So
that's so true.
And that's just comes down to your marketing and your branding. Like when you have a great experience dealing with someone, then they'll refer you, and then So we try to keep that great experience at the end of the day, all the way around, whether it be like, the sipping paints, whether you're booking a live artist, whether you're having face painting at your thing, because we offer a lot of different services. So
I see. So can you list some of them for me? I knew about the sipping paint. I learned about the you do tattoos, and what else? What are some of the other services? If anybody wants to procure or have artistic services from your collective, what are some of those services?
And body painting. So we have that. We do face painting for kids. Come July, I believe we will start offering puffin paints in Maryland, because I believe now it's recreational. So we'll start offering those at our cities as well.
Got it. Okay. That's funny.
And of course, live paint. We do live painting, community art boards, murals, public art. Exhibits. It's a little bit of everything that's dealing with the visual arts. We try to dab into it.
Got it. Excuse me. That's pretty exciting, because just like you said, you're embodying what you just said, which is to go beyond. Don't limit your art to just to the wall. So it's like not only on materials, on keychains or whatever, but also how we can be the artists that we are. And I think I've been sharing that a lot more lately with people who may come to me and say, well, how do you, what about this? And, can you really make a living as a poet? And I'm like, yeah, if you think outside the box, you can definitely make a living as a poet or an artist. But if you are stuck and you just trying to be, Maya Angelou, the one who sit on stages and spit her poems, then you may find it difficult, because that's a box.
That worked for Maya in her time. Like we're in a totally different time now. So you gotta be able to adapt. And even with artists, a lot of artists, like we're, making TikTok videos and reels. Like we don't really want to do those. Like, but we're just doing it because we have to do it to adapt to the time to be able to promote our work. So, it's just still being in the know, in the loop of technology and what's going on. Knowing like you said, you made the point about that earlier, knowing your audience, knowing who you're targeting, and really going for that audience. We make posts all the time and stuff, but we don't target anyone. So it's different things you can do. You can take social media classes to learn when to post, certain sounds to put on your post, like all these different things increase, your brand, as far as like it's all about marketing at the end of the day, and this is why companies spend millions and millions of dollars on marketing, and unfortunately we don't have the millions and millions of dollars to spend, but we do have followers and friends that can share and like and share and help support in different ways like that, until we get to that point, and then once you get to that point, you bring the next person up, and that's the system that is supposed to work. It shouldn't be crabs in the barrel. It should be, we all pulling each other out the barrel.
I love it. I love it. I am filled with so much wonderfulness that you've been sharing tonight. I like to end my segment, because I could probably ask you more questions all night. I'm not gonna do that to you, but I like to end my segment with a few what I call whimsical questions, silly questions. They silly, but they have purpose to it. You'll see. So, one of the first question is, okay, would you rather? Listen to my would you rather question. Would you rather? And you may have done both of these. I don't know. So it may not be that difficult. Would you rather jump out of a plane or parachute from a plane or go jump in an icy river?
I would probably say the river because I'm not really a fan of heights. Like when I do murals that I gotta go on, I'll be jazzed. It's a challenge. People don't even talk about that. Like, the art is one thing, but actually going up 3 stories on the side of a building on a lift, it's terrifying. So that's a whole nother challenge that I deal with that because I'm really not a fan of heights. So yeah, I know that.
That's another. Yeah, people don't know. People have no idea of the passion suffering part of the passion, which is, like you said, because I'm seeing people, doing their art. I'm like, oh, they're living their dream. Meanwhile, their art is probably coming out their chest as they're, like you said, on the side of this building, praying to God this thing don't break or the wind don't blow too hard. So I feel you. I'm not a big fan of heights either. But that's interesting. Okay, so I ask poets usually, what does a perfectly executed poem smell like? And I'll ask you, when you do a visual piece of art, whether that's a tattoo or something, visual for others to see, in your mind, what does the perfectly painted painting smell like? Metaphorically.
I would have to say it smells like flowers. Because of the colors, the palette. And when I first learned murals, the guy told me if your mural is popping and you did it right, the bees will start landing on it. And when you're working and you're doing the murals and it starts popping, bees will start to land on your piece. So that's when I kind of know that it's hitting on something a little bit.
Wow. Yeah. Huh.
So it's weird, but it does happen. Like I just did my last piece, it happened. The bees started to land on it because I guess the colors and they think it's flowers and it's bright.
Yes, flowers.
So it kind of reminds me of that whole sense of seeing like a field of flowers and the bees landing on flowers. And
that's beautiful.
That whole smell.
Yes, that whole. Wow, I will never look at a mural the same. Oh my goodness. Okay. That makes sense though. That makes sense. Wow. Okay. And then my last whimsical question is, if you had a billboard space, now this let me not use that one because you already have billboards in your own way. So let me use a different question. I'm going to steal a question from one of my other co-host here. They asked this question. It's not so whimsical, but I'll ask it, and it's a good question though. Like when I get done with the show, and that means if I'm hosting a show or if I went someplace and performed, or, I'm just really on the cloud 9 from whatever I've been doing. I have maybe about 3 people that will get a call from me, whoever's available will get the call for me to just tell them, oh, this was awesome, or just decompress. That's I have that small circle from those moments. And from an artist perspective, I think often we need a space where we can offload because we're usually so on cloud 9 from just being in our space. So who is or who are the people that you go to offload the joy of something you've done, or offload some of the angst about something you done in the artistic world? Who do you go to? Who's your first call after a major event?
Well, I would say the first person really would probably be Charles. He's normally there,
Okay.
so we'll talk on like the ride home, or
Yeah.
he's after every event, he does a prayer before everything. He does a prayer,
Yeah.
so one of the first people that I really talk to about something, and he's been there hand and foot each step of the way, so he could relate to it, I guess, the best out of everybody too. Um, Second, I would probably say is between Arts by AP, our host for our artist talk show. We've been friends since high school, so we talk a lot on that. And she's watched me through this whole journey, and even through college, she was there. And then thirdly, I would have to say Kiana Clark from the DMV League of Artists. Like we talk for hours, like all the time. Even before COVID, we would just like meet up. Every Monday, we would have breakfast, and we would just sit and talk for hours about whatever. And um, yeah, and that kind of still goes on even now. We talk like every day.
Got it.
And Tiana, like I said, she's the founder of the DMV League of Artists, but she's also a breast cancer survivor. So, just her whole passion and everything, it kind of resonates with me. I think that's why we are so close. I broke my leg 3 times, so I was playing sports and then switched over to art. So I was playing soccer in college and all that, and then broke it for the third time and was like, yo, I'd rather walk. So both of us had that. We was doing something else, and then this passion led us to this. So that's kind of why we go so hard in what we do, because we don't take it for granted, and we know that it could be taken away just like that. So that's why it's good to remain humble,
Yeah.
and just keep pushing the envelope as hard as you can while you're here, because we all learned through COVID that the next day ain't promised either. So I think that's another reason we push so hard with our passion, because we don't know when we will leave this plane physically. So
Yeah.
we want to leave as much behind as possible. Put as many smiles on people's faces as we can. So that's the whole goal. So.
Oh my goodness, man! Every time you say something, I'm like, "Women, you play sports too?" My goodness. So,
Yep, I played
but
soccer and basketball throughout high school and college.
okay.
So I actually broke my leg 3 times, and that's what I was an athlete. I like I said, I didn't even really do the art or anything. I was into music, and I was an athlete. I played ball, and I played soccer. I got a full scholarship playing soccer. Um, I played for the Olympic development team. I played for the district team. I traveled to Europe, Florida, all that different stuff with soccer. I did all that. So it was a complete transition, like from that to music to visual arts. So, but I've been enjoying the journey.
Yeah, you've had a serious journey. I keep saying, man, are you 100 years old? It's like you don't have like 15 different paths already in your lifetime.
I actually turned 40 on February 1st, so my birthday is coming up.
What? Young man. Oh my goodness. And you've described for us a very robust life, and sounds like it's been very rewarding, and you're living it with passion. So that's to be commendable, and still have a humble spirit. That's to be commendable as well. Oh my gosh. Before we raise up the clip that we have next, I think you can maybe set us up. I think you were painting. There is on a, it seems like it was a pressed wooden background that you were painting on, so you can set that up. But before you do that, I do need to ask you, are you still at National Harbor? Do you have a shop there or whatever?
Yes, well, it's called Arts the Nation, and see, that was, like I said, part of the whole political part of getting into it. When I first started working with them, I had wrote a proposal to for us to use vacant retail spaces throughout the county, whether it be like malls, shopping strips that just had empty spaces, and let us have art pop-ups there.
Got it.
And that was our way of creating a sustainable platform for artists to, whether it be poets, authors, you can sell your books there, you can sell your art there, you can, so, and also on the flip side, it gave the property owners, whether it be the mall or whatever, you don't have this gloomy storefront, like you got this space and it's alive, and then that people can actually see what the space could be if they wanted to rent it. And while you have it vacant, this pop-up could be going on, continuously. Like you don't have to, it could be a weekend, it could be a month, it could be however long you have this space available. Because, you have some spaces that's been open for the last 3-4 years and there's just nothing there. So that was my
Yeah.
whole thing. I started seeing this all over our county and I wrote the proposal to them, and that led to me running all the pop-ups for the Arts Council. So I started working for the Arts Council then after that proposal, and they put me in charge of running all the arts pop-ups in the county. So I was doing pop-ups in malls like Iverson Mall,
Yeah.
Greensboro Mall, different communities. We were doing like the art all night, not art all night, national night outs throughout Prince George's County, and then recently I became part of their public art mural program. So I'll be doing a lot of the community art programs and stuff like that. Um, but all of that stuff just stems back, to the initial goal. So.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. We need to sit under your tutelage and learn how to make this thing pop for real, for real. So set us up for this next video I'm going to share, the one you were painting on the wooden background.
In the wood, yeah, that actually was a pretty cool project. I was a brother by the name of Jason Bowers reached out to me for that project, and it was actually for Verizon. They had a campaign called the Call for Kindness, and this was during the whole pandemic, Black Lives Matter movement. And we basically had to do a representation of our work, but we had to use the Verizon color palette. So in that mural, I think I did a Live in Harmony piece with jazz players, and then I put the heart on the wood right next to it. And it was all done in red, white, and gray. So it was the Verizon color palette. And then it was hashtag the Call for Kindness.
Got it.
And that was a nationwide project. They picked 10 artists from 10 cities. And I was just fortunate to be one of the artists. Jason had seen my work around the city and just thought I would be a good fit for the project, reached out to me. And I've been working with Jason ever since. I did a few exhibits with him up like Adams Morgan. He's also the brother that linked me up with the DC Walls Festival. And I was able to go in there and do some stuff. And, so like I said, you just start getting to these different circles and, they start feeding back with.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I'm going to do a Sherry here. Share screenage. Is it the right one? No, it's not the right one. Here we go.
I was there. It was a pretty windy day. Right on like Kennedy Street, Kennedy Ave, DC.
Okay.
And it literally just was a boarded up storefront. So this actual piece wasn't part of the actual sanctioned mural. I was only sanctioned to paint the wall next to it, but these were boarded up. So I actually painted a heart on this one, and then I painted the fist and the peace sign on the other boards around the corner from that.
Got it. Okay.
So I literally painted the whole building. And like I said, sometimes we get paid for it, and sometimes we just see the opportunity to do some things in our community. And I get tagged in these all the time.
Yeah, you do.
People tag me in this piece a lot.
Now, this is amazing to me because I'm assuming it's a technique, but I can't imagine you're painting these swirly lines, but it's still organized. But with the spray, I would imagine that thing would go all over the place if I tried to do this. Is there a technique that keeps it controlled so that you?
The faster and closer to the wall, the smaller and cleaner the line will be. And then we have different caps that we use. That's not like regular spray paint you would get at like Home Depot.
Got it.
They're actually like high-end spray paint that you would get from like a Blick art store or Utrecht. Artist Craftsman Supply, that's another one we use a lot out in Hyattsville. But a lot of us use like Montana Gold, Montana Black, or Dang is a new paint that a lot of us have been using. One of the artists in our collective actually sells that at their spot in Rockville. So a lot of us get good prices on that. So we try to support each other even on that front. if I get a budget, I'll go and buy all the paint that I can from them first, and then I'll go spend the rest of it wherever else I couldn't get from them. So,
Okay.
like we try to keep everything in house as much as possible. Even with our like you wearing the hoodie, we wear each other's clothes. We'll buy each other's stuff, wear each other's gear. We're all supportive. Like we're not really. It's a healthy competition, if that makes sense. Like we're not competing with each other, but we inspire each other to do something better the next time for our own personal thing. So it's like oh shoot, they did that. I gotta kind of try to do something to So it's not one of those things like we're hating or anything. It's just like I said, it's healthy competition. Sometimes, you need competition to make you excel or level your own things to the next level. So
That's a
that's
beautiful
all.
thing.
But we're
That's
all brothers and sisters at the end of the day, and we share opportunities, we share connections. Even with the plug I got for my clothes and my hoodies, I was referred to from one of my other fellow artists, and was able to get the distribution deal because he linked me up with that. But I wouldn't have had that unless he did it, unless he shared his resources with me. I had my own personal resources as well, which I shared with him, but it was it was a give and take. Um, and it's funny because his same resource, I would come up with stuff. He'd be like, "Bro, where'd you get that made?" I'm like, "The people you sent me to." He's like, "Oh, I didn't even know they do that." I'm like, so it'd be funny. He'd be like, "Oh," and that goes back to like really doing research on what you really want. So like, and that's the point. Like my guy put me on with these people, but I'm getting stuff from them that he didn't even know that they did.
wow.
It's because I just took the time to research it a little bit more than he probably did. He probably got what he wanted and then just went
Move
with
on.
it. And how
Right.
else do y'all do? And that's and the snowballs and just stuff like that. But people just got to speak and ask questions, and don't be afraid because closed mouths don't get fed, and we all know that.
Yes, we do. Another golden nugget for the evening. I'm going to bring in my co-host back onto the screen.
Yeah.
Hey.
Oh, dang. I wasn't ready. I was like, oh, I'm back. Oh, I ain't know.
Sorry.
What I want to know is I saw you painting with the black. What happens if you make a mistake? How do you correct that?
Well, the best thing about paint is paint. You can paint over anything.
You just paint over it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So most of my outlines, I start with black or color, and then I fill it in and do the final outline over it again at the end. So I think on that first clip,
Okay, I got you. I was like, what? I was like, where's the paint eraser?
Yeah, if you look at that first video, I think y'all showed where I was doing the glass. If you see, it's like a skeleton of the heart on the back. I did that in like a lighter color, and then I filled in all the colors, and then I went over it again with the black.
Gotcha.
On some walls, it is
Gotcha.
difficult because you don't have that actual wall color. So if your heart is unproportional, you have to really be on your point with some of these walls, because if I don't have the paint of the actual wall, then it's no way for me to cut it back or shape it to make it perfect. So a lot of math.
Oh.
A lot of people think the heart is just a heart. It's a lot of math that goes into that heart when I do it. I'm measuring the frame. It has to be centered.
Well, that's it for me. I can't paint.
Yeah, I'm measuring the sides, the distance that the heart is, the curve from each side of the window from whatever. So if that's, one side can't be 5 inches away and the other side 7, because that will make the heart unproportional. So you have to try to get the math as close as possible. And a lot of art is math. Even when we do the surface murals, ground murals, the Breonna Taylor mural was 7,000 square feet on the ground. You can see it from space. But while we're painting it, we're walking on it, so you can't, it's all math, and you just got to kind of trust that process.
Right.
That is phenomenal. Wow.
That's amazing.
That is amazing.
Definitely. Woo. So is there like an outline? Because I know I see people who paint on canvas, and it may be, a pencil outline that's done first, right? So is there an outline that you do first and then
you can do it. It depends on the piece. The larger scale pieces will, if you see some graffiti artists, they'll do what you call a doodle grid. They'll just put a bunch of random numbers and letters and all that up, and then they'll configure the piece within that. Some artists use a grid system. That's what I do a lot. It's just simpler to read. And you'll put a grid on the wall or whatever you're using, and then you'll take a picture of that grid on the wall, and then we all have like iPads and stuff. We'll drop the image over top of that, and then we can work block by block in the grid. So that way it helps us to keep the proportion. Now you still got to go back and do your own art, but you can get that outline in of the shape and how where everything goes, and then you go back in and start doing the actual work, and then you paint the grid out.
We're learning a lot. We're learning a lot, Miss Cayenne. We're gonna be some painters next thing. Next thing we're gonna paint.
Or you could just freestyle, like the one on I think 8th Street, that big piece by AVEC Apartments. I just freestyled the whole thing. Like I didn't have a plan. I just looked at the walls and was like, all right, this is gonna go here, and then, I just made it up as I went, and that happened too. So
it's like your initial desire to be an architect is still in place, because that what you described sounds like you talked about blueprints, you talking about the grid and the numbers, and I'm already blown. My head is blown. So that's architectural work, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of math. Yeah, and like I said, I try to incorporate that. So I am, like I said, it does come full circle. I actually worked at Michael's for about 3 years. I custom picture framed, so. That was before I even did art, so then to come back around, I know how to frame all my own work. I know how to do all that because I was a framer for 3 years. So it's just little stuff that comes back full circle that kind of help, and then in that sense, I teach other artists how to frame that don't know how to frame and how to stretch canvases and stuff like that.
Awesome sauce. I'll never be minded not to despise it. Go ahead.
Right. What do you know about your art that you can teach?
With as far as I know, as far as like I teach sip and paint classes, and within that, I try to teach a lot of stuff that I learned. I don't just try to have people come in and paint an image that I sketched or just come in and do whatever. I actually teach you some elements of art. We start off with with color theory, the primary colors, secondary, tertiary colors, and then we just talk about different techniques and stuff. No one's art is going to be like mine, so I can't really teach my art per se, because art is in the eye of the beholder. It comes out the way, like everybody would say, like I have in my mind how a piece should come out, but then it comes out this way, and it's not that you had in your mind how it would come out. It came out exactly how it's supposed to come out, but you envisioned it coming out a different way because you were looking at something else, and that really wasn't your representation of that. So I always tell people, they be like, oh, I messed up. There's no such thing as a mistake in art. So you have to understand that when it came out that way, that was how it was supposed to actually come out, and that's why I do like doing like the neo-expressionism work as well, because it's so different from the work I do here, which is so structured and, detailed and correct, like everything has to be in its place and have and then the neo-expressionism is just stuff is everywhere, kind of like the hoodie I have on, it's just your expression. It's whatever you're thinking. It might be a topic mentally focused on at the time. I just let all the stuff come out on that one topic. It's not about a perfect line. It's about the line just being whatever it is, so I like that organic form of creation as well as the structure, and I think this style of structured work and the line work came probably from me doing tattoos, and just having that sense of solid line and complete flow and stuff like that with my work. Am I breaking up? I'm breaking up.
A little bit. We got you though. A little bit. You know what happens when you bring in the fire to social media, it break you up a little bit, so we can't get it all. That's what I said. When the fire come, a little bit, we get broke up a little bit. That's what happens.
Yeah.
So you do you do such an array of different things, right? So, and you were talking about like the starving artist part, and Miss Cayenne spoke about it a little bit about like living as an artist and thinking outside of the box, doing other things. I mean, like I do speak as a poet, right? So, but I also make more money when I'm teaching something, right? So I make more money as a facilitator of something, right? But and then you talked a little bit about basically getting some sponsorship. You didn't say sponsorship, but I definitely, like you were talking about, social media, you may not have the money, but some of your people who are your fans may have money, or they can lead you to people. And I definitely wanted to kind of reiterate that you may know somebody that knows somebody, right, that can give you the sponsorship that you need. And writing proposals, you spoke about that. We kind of like went on over that, but definitely wanted to like just kind of revert back to that and ask you, like, as far as proposal, like are you hiring someone to write your proposals? Is that something that you do yourself?
It's a combination of the two. Depending on if we have time. Like if I'm on a project and a grant or something comes up, then we'll reach out to people that have helped with proposals before or grants. But I've actually went to like grant writing workshops. That's actually sponsored by the county.
There you go.
Grow workshops and stuff to teach you. Because I think the first grant I wrote I didn't get. And the only, I guess, the good part about that is I knew the girl who I guess approved the grants. Because I work with the Arts Council and they always it was one big family. So I just asked her, hey, why didn't I get it? And she was just like, it was the language you used. And, and you have to be consistent when you say certain things. So like in some parts of the grant, I would state I versus me as an individual. Then I would say we in another part, meaning I'm talking about us as so that was confusing. Different little things like that. You learn at these workshops. You learn the language that you have to convey to them to sound appealing for these grants. And I think it's important for everybody to take advantage of those things when they come about because they're free. And, the county throws them because they want and they have to give this money away in order to get it again next year. So, when we don't take advantage of those situations, we only are hurting our own craft because it's free money for us to do what we want to do. You don't have to pay it back. You don't have to worry, so I think through COVID, they had it was grants going out for artists everywhere. We may apply for like 3 or 4 and we got like 2, right. I think 2 to 3 grants throughout COVID that helped us pay, studio rent and stuff like that. I think it's important to stay on that side always. Like, and that's like I said, it's just knowing the business side of whatever your craft is too. It's not everybody just wants to be the art in the art part. And I think the biggest lesson I learned was when I did a public art symposium for Prince George's County. And there was this one lady that came up, it was an older lady, and she did this presentation. And by the end, she had on all these hats and they stacked up really high. And she was just saying, these are all the different hats you have to put on to be in public art or to be in this thing. You're not going to just be an artist. You have to be a manager. Then you have to put on your construction hat because then you're getting up on lifts. You have hard hats. You have this. You got to have harnesses. Then you got to do this. Going back to being the manager. Then it's the artist that you got to be. Then it's this person you got to be. You get what I'm saying? So it's all these different hats you got to put on that's outside of just being a creative. And this is why I put people like Charles in place. So I can focus on the creative side. Yes. And I think it's and everybody's looking for a Charles. He's not an easy thing to find. So right. I do appreciate, I know what I have in that, but it is important to get somebody that believes in what you can do, and then you believe in what they can offer your company. Because I think a lot of people try to get people to work for them in the capacity that they want them to work for them, instead of asking with some. And you could just ask someone, what do you think you could bring to the table? And then let them thrive in that, and they will be happier. They will be more productive for you, and everybody will be reaching the goal that you're trying to reach.
Is Charles, because what do you call him? Is he a manager?
That's fantastic.
Yeah, Charles is, he's more so like my road manager.
Got it.
and he's the CFO of the collective. So he handles a lot of the operational aspects of the collective, anything to do with like contracts, invoices, scheduling, stuff like that will all go through Charles.
Got
Come on,
it.
Charles. Everybody needs a little Charles.
Yes, Lord. I got an oldie but goodie. Do you remember this?
That's a classic right
Oh,
there.
nice.
Yep. That's at the that was at the Arc.
Right. Well, I think it was
Yeah.
like
I
my
just
second.
did a show at the Covenant House recently, and that's right behind it. So it
Yeah,
reminded me.
exactly.
Mm-hmm. I
Yes.
remember that show. That's a live paint. I actually haven't been able to live paint in like 2 or 3 years. So
Oh, you're more than welcome to come. I'm having my gathering in December, so you're more than welcome if you want to stop through and
December 10th. I just bought my tickets while we were on here. December 10th.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, please send me that info.
I will. Did you have anything?
But goodie right there. That's
it is. I still be rocking this jump.
I have 2 more questions. One of which, since you do so much type of art, I would like to ask, what is your favorite part? Because you do the paintings you got the paintings on the wall, you got the sipping paint, you painting on the children's faces, you doing all that. Like, what is like your most passionate part? Since this is passion projects, what is your most passionate different art that you do?
I would say just exploring the arts. I don't really have one thing I like doing more than other, but I like finding and creating new things. That's what keeps me like into it. I think that's why I do different series, because I can get complacent and I can be like, I'm starting to get bored with this, or like I'll push. That's why you'll see me, like I just told her earlier, I incorporated the portrait element to my design, because I just don't want to be out painting this design for the rest of my life, So, so it is not. I appreciate it and I love doing it, but I don't want to be stuck in a box or put in a box of just one thing as an artist. So that's why I said like my style is to have no style at all. Um, so I really don't. It's the exploration of finding new techniques, leveling up my skill set, finding, like, I'm always a student, and I think that's the true passion of it. Is I've never fully mastered anything, and I'm not looking to master one thing. I would rather be overall considered, an overall artist, and I feel like I just wanted to be considered one of the best overall artists, meaning like, I might not be the best, but I'm great at a little bit of all of these different things, and that'll add my resume and my portfolio. But at the end of my career, will speak on that.
Fantastic. I lied. I got 2 more questions. What have you, as an artist, what are you most surprised that you have done? Like, not most achieved, right? So like for example, I am most surprised that as a poet, I have performed at the Kennedy Center, right? So what have you, like, as an artist, like, what are you most surprised that your art has taken you somewhere?
I would say when I do these out of state projects or get invited out of state to do anything, it just lets me know that it's reaching beyond just my local circle, and it's beyond just the people that support me.
Yes.
Like family and stuff, because a lot of times you'll get supported by our family and different things like that. And then, we think people get big headed and be like, oh, I can make it because, what, your aunt bought a piece or your aunt did that, but when it started being received, a lot of people tell me that my art crossed over. And they try to say that in a sense of like a musician.
Nice.
Or like when you say like, oh, you're a black artist, but your music crossed over. So you appeal to more than just black people with your work. And I can see that with the people who tag me, the people I meet. Like, I just met a gay couple, 2 white guys in Upper Marlboro, and they stopped. We were big fans of your work. We love it. We couldn't even believe that it was you out here painting. You know, we were just coming to vote, and we just looked over and seen all your work. And they stopped. I literally talked to them for about 30 minutes, and we
Wow.
took pictures and everything. But I mean, I've met people from so many different cultures, so many different backgrounds, and you know, it doesn't matter what that is, they resonate with the work. And I think that's the part, you know, that, you know, for me, um, yeah, I don't know where I
That
was.
is an achievement. Yes, congratulations on that because I hate to say it, but sometimes your people, your aunts and your people, all your black people, they be wanting it for free. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
other
we
people be
can't.
trying
We
to
got
pay.
to get them out to
That's
have
all.
a. You know, we try to get people out to having of that and asking for hookups and stuff like that. You know, we just want people to understand that. You know, and I've even been. I have to check myself with stuff like that because in the past I just and the way I remember that is in the past I'm like if I can spend $90, I can spend $1,200 on some Gucci or this, I can spend that same amount with my own people and help someone get their brand to that
That's
level because
right.
we will never get to that point unless we invest in people like that. And you know they've been around all these years because someone invested in them, and I'm sure it was their
Mm-hmm.
people. So we have to invest in our own,
Yes.
and that's the only way we're really going to get there, you know. And yeah, we got to do that. Support each other.
That's a word. That's a word. Okay. This is the last question for the night. So you are right now with my Miss Cayenne on passion projects. My segment is called Poets and Platforms. Danielle does Let's Talk About the dot dot dot, which is usually books. So she usually interviews authors, and then Simply Sherry does From Behind the Microphone. So now that you have been reminded of all of the segments and you have been on the show, who do you think would be a great guest for the show?
Who do that? As far as other artists or
Other artists, other any type of artist, because we interview all artists, right? So any type of
uh,
artist,
I
anyone. It
like
doesn't
my
have to be
boy
local because we
I
are
like
live.
I like my boy Anthony Oates, comedian, poet, host at Busboys and Poets. I think he's a real authentic and unique guy. I've had him on a few.
What's his name again? Anthony Oates.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know
that's
Anthony.
Yeah,
yeah.
we know
He's actually have a lot of fun painting at his events. Charity Joyce Blackwell. She's one of my favorite spoken word artists in the city. I've been on her.
Ironically, Charity help us start this platform, but I'm gonna put her on our list. I'm gonna put her on the list, and I'm gonna interview her again. Yep, we're
Of
gonna
course,
do it.
Tiana Clark, Carrie,
Yeah.
Good one.
Michaels, any of those ones that actually run collectives themselves. Um, Artists like Demont Pender. He travels all over the world painting. He's on a lot of national platforms, painting with a lot of, he paints with like Raheem Devon. He's always on something with like Erica Badu or any of the stars. That's Demont Pender.
Nice.
And you have SP the Plug is another muralist. A lot of people say right now if you see work in DC, it's either me or SP. Far as like the smaller
Okay.
pieces going around that just popping up continuously. SP is probably the other one that's
Mhm.
putting up a lot of work. He was actually in the public art game a little bit before me, so I was watching him like, geez, how is he getting all these projects? And then when I fell into it, I got it. Like because once you do one, they just start snowballing. And
Mhm.
yeah, and that kind of piggybacks to like what you were saying before, like some of the places that it takes you. Like you would never imagine some of the places
Mhm.
that your art can take you. And me and Charles talk about that all the time because we just get access to stuff sometimes that people wouldn't normally have access to. Like we walked through the new Prince George's Hospital before it was built because they wanted art in there, so we had to go in there with hard hats on, and the elevators weren't even built, and it was little
Wow.
stuff like that. Or when we did the car show at the convention center, we got to go in when they were loading up the Ferraris and all that, and got to hear them start them up, and they riding the cars in the showroom. But it's just little behind the scene things like that that we get to preview. And like I said, those would be the places that we kind of find ourselves like, how do we even end up in here? Like or places that you ride by in DC every day, and you never knew that was that, and then you have an event there, you paint there, and you're like, whoa, like, or just riding around the city and be like, yo, I painted there, I did something there. Or I'll pop up on a piece of my art and forget that I even did it. Like, oh shoot, that's my work. Like, so I get that whole aspect when people pop up or stuff, because I do it myself, because I'll be putting out so many sometimes I forget the locations. And and then I'll ride up on it and be like, oh shoot, so I kind of surprise myself sometimes.
You're like, that's me
right
there.
Right.
I can see you. Look, I can see you on a date riding around talking about that's me. You see that? I did that. Let me take you on a little tour.
The thing that gets people are like my exes. So they try to go out on dates with someone new, and then they'll be seeing my stuff all over the place, and they'll call me like, bro, like, I'm trying to avoid you. I seen you work like in 3 different places, and I'm just like, what the heck? Like, I'm like, my bad,
Hilarious.
That's funny.
Well, you are definitely an amazing person and an amazing artist. Definitely.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate you guys for having me on.
Awesome. We glad to have you. Yes. You dropped so many nuggets tonight. I'm telling you, folks, if you catching this on the replay or Spotify, please, you want to get your pen and paper out, take some notes, because LW, you really dropped some great strategic ways to really succeed as an artist, as a creative, and some things to really rethink how we do what we do as creatives and be strategic and getting people in our lives, and even the mindset of empowering one another versus competing against one another. So you just dropped a whole lot today. I think I'm gonna have to go back and listen myself, because and we appreciate you. Appreciate you.
Right.
Tell us how we can support you. And of course,
definitely. Before we do,
go ahead.
But I'm getting frozen, so I'm not really saying. I was gonna say, well, we didn't ask you because we didn't point down to the bottom and let people know that they can support you. So let me point there. They can support you and they can follow you. Let me go up here. Let me let them know, right? But I didn't ask you the question about how can people support you, financially, and the people who don't have the finances to support you. We definitely want to get that in there before we wrap it up.
Right. Like I said, it's not always about the finances. Like, it's sharing posts, sharing events, sharing the culture, but it's more about art awareness, and that's like I said, part of the activist part. It's just showing the community that art is wanted and needed, and just keep pushing it out. Like, so if we have an event, come out to the event, support the event. Hey, we always want poetry there. You can come in and say a poem. Like, we're always opening our platforms up for any parts of the arts. Even when I had a guy do, he did what they call the poetry poster project. So he basically took the poet's work and framed it. And, I had him come and display that at a few of our things. So that was a cool way of bringing the poetry into a visual aspect, because normally you don't see poems in a way that you could read it, like in the visual aspect. And that was kind of made me think about, even you guys in a visual art form. Like, what if you, because I've seen this in a few places where they put the poems up like it's a mural.
Yeah.
And that could be a great collaboration between an artist and a poet. Like putting a piece on you seeing your work put on the side of a building.
That's been one of my biggest dreams.
Right. So your message is being resonated a lot different. Or this new group.
You give me some spray paint. I'll put it up on the building for you.
No, but peep this. This is even more in tune, I feel like, with what you guys do as far as the poetry. It's a group called Unbound that I'm working with, and they are catered to doing digital art installations on buildings. So they could project your poem onto a building. So you having murals in places that you traditionally wouldn't be able to put murals. And it's a temporary installation, but you can put these murals on these different buildings, projecting them. So that's the new form people are trying to move into. And it's not as permanent, but it is still a way of displaying permanent public work. You could do something where like your words are moving and then falling down, and like anything, like your poem could be interactive. So it's just thinking about how we can take our work to the next level. And that's always should be, even when it's, like I said, literary, visual, we should always be looking at what is the next way we can touch our community with our work.
Wow.
And how to do it on a larger scale, because that's the only reason you guys see me everywhere. That's the only reason you guys know my work, is because it's out in the public eye, right? So how can we do that for everybody? How can we do that across all platforms of the arts?
Love it.
So that's the question I leave with you guys.
Yes, we'll appreciate that. We gonna talk later.
We gonna talk.
We're gonna build on that later.
Definitely. You gonna close us out, Miss Kaniki?
Yes, I will close us out. Thank you so much for joining us. Those are on Facebook and on YouTube. We are here every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Keep the Mic On. Again, please support our artists. Our Cash App, them tips go a long ways, and follow. And please like, follow, and subscribe. We'll be back next week with Simply Sherry, I think. Is that right? Simply Sherry? That's right. Simply Sherry will be back next week. I don't know who her artist is, but you got to come back and see. So until we see you, please stay safe. Wash your hands. Like, follow, subscribe. We'll see y'all next week.